My family's island was a well-kept secret, nestled in the middle of Blackwater Lake like a gem no one knew existed. Technically, it was just under 2 acres, covered in dense pines, ringed by smooth rock outcroppings, and completely inaccessible except by boat or, if you were very determined, by an overly ambitious paddleboard. It didn't have a house or a dock or electricity, but it did have something else. Otters. Not just any otters. Highly trained, freakishly coordinated ex-Navy program otters who, after being retired from a classified aquatic training initiative, ended up here as part of a strange but very real animal behavioral project funded by an eccentric cousin of mine named Dale. Don't ask too many questions. It was legal, mostly. The island became their sanctuary, their home, and thanks to Dale. Unique connections, it doubled as a covert otter conditioning zone, complete with underwater obstacle courses and camouflage training perches. So when I noticed a hammock strung up between 2 trees during a routine supply drop, I damn near dropped the crate of sardines I was carrying. There she was, wearing a sun hat the size of a satellite dish, sipping kombucha from a mason jar, and reclining like she'd discovered her own private paradise, Karen. I didn't know her name yet, but I could smell the entitlement from the shore. At first, I assumed she was just a lost camper. But then I saw the Bluetooth speaker, the decorative wind chimes, the beach towel with a monogrammed K, and the laminated sign staked into the ground that read, Karen's Island, Private Retreat, respect my vibe. I stood on the shore squinting. Surely she hadn't just claimed my island. Surely no one was that bold. I called out, hey, you do know this is private property, right? She looked up lazily, smiled like I was a waiter at a spa, and said, oh, hey, you don't have to worry, I'm just here to recharge. Nobody was using it, so I figured it was just up for grabs. Up for grabs? Before I could even start explaining the concept of trespassing, something stirred in the reeds behind her. Karen didn't notice, but I did. The otters were watching, and they were not amused. I stepped off my skiff, boots crunching onto the rocky shore, trying to keep calm. Karen didn't budge from her hammock. She just gave me that breezy smile, the kind that said, I do yoga, so I'm allowed to ignore boundaries. Look, I said, keeping my voice steady, this isn't a public beach. This is private property, and you can't just... Relax, she interrupted, waving a manicured hand. I'm not hurting anything. I'm just hammocking and journaling. I even picked up trash on the way in. I'm making the island better. I blinked. Their was no trash. She shrugged, manifested some. Before I could respond, a small splash rippled from the other side of the island. Karen glanced over her shoulder but didn't think much of it. I, on the other hand, knew exactly what it was. Otter Team Bravo had entered the chat. Dale, graduates, 6 hyper-intelligent otters trained in stealth, evasion, and item retrieval were notoriously territorial. They weren't dangerous, but they were highly trained, easily bored, and took foreign objects very seriously, especially things like hammocks and Bluetooth speakers. Ma'am, you really need to leave. This island's not just private, it's in use. Karen rolled her eyes. By who? The fish. Another splash, closer this time. A sleek brown shape zipped beneath the surface, leaving a V-shaped wake. I sighed, not fish. Oh, please, she sat up now, voice rising. No one was here, there's no house, no fence, just trees and vibes. You can't own nature. It's an island, I said deadpan. You can literally own it. I pay taxes on it, and I manage the wildlife here, which you're disturbing. Karen scoffed. I'm not disturbing anything, I'm connecting. And just then a third splash, louder. One of the otters had surfaced, barely noticeable unless you were looking, which I was. It clung to the edge of a rock, eyes fixed on the hammock and its smug occupant. I gave her one last chance. Listen, I'm asking nicely. If you don't leave, you're going to regret it. She smirked. What are you going to do? Call the squirrel police. Behind her, another otter silently crept up the bank like a furry Navy commando, dragging something behind it. A rope? No, Karen's backup towel. I didn't say a word, because Karen had just made a tactical error that would echo through the forest. She assumed the island was empty. She had no idea it was home to the most elite team of tactical otters this side of a government clearance. And those little guys, they were about to deploy. Karen was still lounging, blissfully unaware that her tropical daydream was rapidly turning into a covert animal operation. She had shifted positions in her hammock, now attempting some sort of half-hearted, reclining goddess, yoga pose, eyes closed, earbuds in, humming off-key to what sounded like a guided meditation app. Meanwhile, Otter Team Bravo had fully mobilized. From my vantage point near the tree line, I saw them in formation, 3 in the water, 2 on land, and 1 behind a boulder with what looked suspiciously like Karen's travel-sized sunscreen bottle clutched in its little paws. I didn't know the mission objective, but I had a feeling it involved chaos. The first strike was subtle. One of the otters darted up to the hammock's anchor tree, scampered halfway up, and began chewing through the thin cord that held Karen's decorative wind chime in place. Another one burrowed into her open beach tote, pulling out a granola bar and vanishing into the underbrush like a snack ninja. Karen didn't even notice until her hammock gave the slightest asterisk wobble asterisk. She opened one eye and frowned. "Weird, this tree isn't grounding properly," she muttered to herself. The wind chime dropped, bonking her lightly on the shoulder. "Okay, rude," she said aloud, sitting up and looking around. "Is someone messing with my stuff?" As if on cue, an otter popped up right beside her cooler, stared directly at her, and gave a short, sharp chirp. Karen yelped. "What the was that, a weasel?" I took a cautious step forward, trying not to laugh. "Still think the island's unoccupied." Karen whipped around. "Did you bring animals here to harass me?" I raised an eyebrow. "Nope, you brought yourself here to harass asterisk them." Another chirp, this time followed by a splash. One of the otters had launched itself into her hammock from the opposite tree like a silky torpedo, causing it to tilt violently and sending Karen shrieking into the sand below. The Bluetooth speaker skipped a beat and started playing a fast-forwarded meditation track in a chipmunk voice. Karen, tangled in her sun hat and tangled worse in a net of confusion, scrambled to her feet. "What is happening?" "Otter training zone," I said calmly. "You're in the middle of an aquatic tactical conditioning course. Unauthorized presence triggers. Reactions." Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again like she was buffering. "Are you saying I just got attacked by Navy SEAL otters?" "I didn't say it," I shrugged. "You did." Karen spun in a circle, trying to grab her towel, only to find it missing. The towel was now halfway up a tree, courtesy of one very smug-looking otter holding it like a victory flag. She looked at me wild-eyed. "This is a asterisk lawsuit asterisk. I'll have you arrested. You can't train animals to ambush people." "Oh, they're not trained to ambush," I said, smirking. "They're trained to protect, and right now, they're doing a fantastic job." Karen stood there, covered in pine needles and sandy outrage, arms flailing in a dramatic ballet of disbelief. "This is illegal. This is asterisk dangerous. These otters are unhinged." From the nearby reeds, a sleek head surfaced and chirped once, almost like it was responding. "Confirmed." She turned to me with fire in her eyes and kombucha still leaking from her now-tipped mason jar. "I don't care asterisk who asterisk you think you are. This is animal aggression. I'm calling the authorities." I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and held it out. "Great. I've got the number for Fish and Wildlife right here. Want to explain to them why you trespassed onto a private, documented wildlife rehabilitation island during a restricted activity cycle." Karen blinked. "Restricted what now?" I scrolled to a saved PDF and tapped the screen. "See that seal? That's a federal notice. This island's part of an animal behavior rehabilitation project, certified, regulated, and very asterisk protected. Entering it without permission is like walking into a bald eagle's nest and setting up a tent." Karen's tan went pale. "I did asterisk see asterisk any signs?" she snapped. "Probably because the otters pulled yours up to make room for a new training track," I said, pointing behind her. Sure enough, her laminated Karen's Island sign was now hanging upside down from a tree limb, partially chewed and covered in paw prints. Meanwhile, Team Bravo had entered Phase 2. One otter had popped open the cooler, fishing out a sparkling water can and rolling it into the lake like a torpedo. Another was now systematically unhooking her hammock, causing it to sag and spill her belongings one item at a time. Her flip-flops disappeared into the brush like prey. Karen gasped, "That's my asterisk stuff." "They're returning it to nature," I said, "very spiritually aligned." She spun, spotting one otter staring her down from a branch. "You people are psychotic. This isn't even asterisk real. Otters don't act like this." "Not your average otters," I said with a smirk. "These ones trained with retired Marines. Ever heard of wetland defense drills?" Karen froze. No, this is some prank. You're messing with me. There's no way this is legit." "Want to see the security footage?" I asked, holding up my phone again. I showed her a clip from the underwater cam, clear footage of Karen paddling up, dragging her cooler ashore, and staking her laminated sign into the ground like she was claiming uncharted territory. She even waved to the camera. "Day 1 of my asterisk retreat island," she'd chirped. Karen slapped a hand over her mouth. "You were asterisk recording me." I raised an eyebrow. "You trespassed on a federally protected research site. What did you expect, a welcome basket?" Behind her, 2 otters high-fived. No, really, they slapped paws and dove back into the lake. Karen spun around, saw the otters gathering her items into what looked like a very coordinated pile, and screamed, "You haven't heard the last of me." "I really hope not," I called after her. "The otters need more stealth drills." She stomped to the shore barefoot, one shoe missing, towel trailing behind her like a defeated banner. I watched as she paddled furiously away on her oversized float board, leaving a trail of bubbles and broken ego behind her. Karen didn't just paddle away, she paddled away furious asterisk. The kind of furious that brews lawsuits in mason jars and simmers under a canopy of self-righteousness. I could see her talking to herself as she disappeared around the bend, likely composing a passive-aggressive email in her head with a subject line like urgent, hostile otter activity. But back on the island, the real work began. The otters, bless their fuzzy little souls, had not only retrieved and relocated all of Karen's items, but now began what Dale always referred to as post-intrusion protocol. That included remarking the perimeter, checking underwater snares for disturbances, and dragging her half-empty kombucha bottle into the woods for disposal via chew and bury. I took inventory of the situation. No damage to the trees, minimal trash, all of which the otters had already piled near the compost box, and one very flustered trespasser likely typing in all caps somewhere across the lake. But the situation had potential, educational potential. I opened up the research log Dale had set up on the island, a physical clipboard tucked in a weatherproof case near the main clearing, and documented the entire incident. Date Thursday. Intrusion type civilian, nonviolent, delusional. Reaction protocol triggered Otter Team Bravo. Result full deterrent success. Notes subject claimed nature cannot be owned. Team responded with precision and flair. Satisfied, I returned to my skiff, but not before planting 2 new signs, real ones this time. Big, bold, and impossible to miss. Warning, private island, active otter training ground asterisk. TRSPSSERS will be debriefed by Furry Special OPS. That night, I made a casual post on the local community board, mostly as a preemptive strike in case Karen tried to flip the narrative. Friendly heads up to anyone venturing near Blackwater Lake. Please respect posted property lines. Island in the center is an active wildlife research and behavioral training zone. If you happen to see otters retrieving sunglasses or dragging a yoga mat into the woods, yes, that's real. And yes, they're better trained than most mall security guards. The response? Absolute gold. People thought it was a joke. until someone linked to a real news article about Dale's retired Marine Otter program. Then the likes and laugh reacts poured in. Navy SEAL otters started trending locally. A bakery down the road made a limited edition sugar cookie in the shape of an otter wearing night vision goggles. Karen, she saw the post. She commented, "You people think this is funny. I was traumatized by rogue wildlife and HUMILIATD." To which someone replied, "Imagine invading someone's pool and then complaining the lifeguard splashed you." I didn't have to say a word. The internet had already handed her the rope and the hammock cord. By Saturday morning, things had taken a beautiful turn. Karen's dramatic comment thread had exploded into a full-blown internet sensation. Local influencers were now jokingly tagging the island as Otter Island Tactical Resort and adding hashtags like SEAL Team Squeak and Karen vs Nature. One local brewery even started workshopping a new craft IPA called Unauthorized Hammock. But Karen wasn't done yet. She came back. Not to the island. No, she wasn't brave or foolish enough for that. But she marched right into the county municipal office in town, demanding to file a formal complaint against an aggressive aquatic wildlife operation harassing peaceful wellness tourists. The poor front desk clerk, bless him, tried to explain that she had illegally accessed private land, but Karen just slammed down a folder labeled *Evidence, Trauma Island. Inside were blurry photos of otters, a mangled wind chime, and what I assume was a crushed kombucha can wrapped in a napkin like forensic material. Word got back to me within the hour. Small towns are efficient like that. So I did what any proud otter trainer's cousin would do. I called Dale. Dale was living off-grid somewhere in the mountains, but he still kept tabs on the Otter unit via motion sensors and a satellite uplink. When I told him about Karen's complaint, he burst out laughing. "Wait, she thinks the otters attacked her," he said between wheezes. "That's rich. Bravo team hasn't done a full intimidation maneuver since 2020. "Well, they did this week," I said, "with flair." Dale promised to forward official documentation proving the island's active research status, including the Department of Wildlife's permit, complete with timestamps and maps showing the otters' territories. I printed it all out and dropped it off at the county office, just in case Karen tried to spin her sob story into something more legally complicated. And then, for good measure, I updated the signage at the main launch point across the lake. Notice, island actively MONITORED for wildlife research *. Unauthorized VISITORS may encounter tactical otters. Yes, really. Tourists loved it. They posed for pictures next to the sign, posted selfies with captions like, "Trying not to get tackled by otters today." One couple even asked if we offered guided tour. I politely declined, but I did sell them a t-shirt that read, "Blackwater, come for the trees, stay for the otters." Karen, meanwhile, went completely radio silent online. Except for one final comment, posted late one night beneath an otter meme. "I hope they chew through your kayak." To which someone replied, "I hope they train to use one." At this point, the story had shifted completely. Karen wasn't the victim. She was a footnote in the rise of the world's most beloved aquatic defense team. She'd come for peace, declared dominion, and left humbled by fur and fury. And the otters, they were just getting warmed up. Karen's reputation had officially gone downstream, right along with her monogrammed towel and what dignity she had left. In the weeks that followed, the hammock incident became the stuff of local legend. Even the high school kids were in on it. A senior prank involved someone hanging a hammock between two flagpoles with a cardboard cutout of an otter holding a sign that said, "Stay off my island, Karen." But while the town laughed, Karen stewed. She launched a short-lived blog titled *Hammock Justice*, where she ranted about wildlife extremism and claimed the otters were trained by military men to terrorize women. It was shut down within 3 days after people started flooding the comments with gifs of otters saluting. She filed one last complaint to the Department of Wildlife, which was quickly dismissed after they reviewed the surveillance footage and Dale's research logs. The final statement from the department read, "No evidence of intentional harassment by otters. Subject trespassed on protected property. Incident is closed." Mic dropped. Karen didn't take the loss quietly. She showed up at a community board meeting in full hiking gear, presumably to look more outdoorsy, and attempted to rally support for a lake access Bill of Rights. No one supported it. Someone did, however, ask if the Otters would be providing security for the next town parade. But karma wasn't done with Karen. Turns out her wellness influencer side hustle had been operating without any proper business licenses. When she posted a discounted lakefront retreat online, this time on a different asterisk piece of questionable land, she got flagged again. Fines rolled in. Her following dried up faster than a sun-baked flip-flop. And yet, despite it all, she never directly mentioned the Otters again. I think deep down, she knew she'd tangled with something she couldn't outbreathe, outmeditate, or outmanifest. Back on the island, the Otters continued their training as usual. Every so often, one of them would drag an object from the water's edge, usually trash, sometimes something odd like a foam flip-flop or a waterproof notebook. Each time, they'd leave the item neatly placed at the base of the old cedar tree near the center clearing, like offerings to some strange aquatic god. And I kept logging their progress, feeding them sardines, and occasionally chuckling when I spotted a tourist boat slowing down, cameras ready, hopping to spot one of the Blackwater Guardians. The best part, the Otters were now part of the local identity. Tourists asked about them. Kids drew them on classroom murals. A local brewery actually went through with it and released Seal Team Squeak, IPA, with a label featuring a cartoon otter in night vision goggles rappelling down a kayak. And Karen. She was never invited back to the lake. Peace settled over Blackwater Lake like a morning mist, cool, quiet, and absolutely Otter-approved. Karen's name became more of a punchline than a presence. She never returned to the island, never launched another hammock-based retreat, and eventually faded from the local narrative altogether. Occasionally, someone would joke about spotting her kayaking with fear or whispering apologies into a pinecone, but in reality, she'd become a cautionary tale told over campfires and fish fries. The island, on the other hand, thrived. Otter Team Bravo continued their training regimen like nothing ever happened. They swam obstacle courses, practiced coordinated dives, and occasionally revisited the scene of the great Hammock ambush like little four-legged veterans of a silent war. I started giving informal talks at the community center, walking folks through the Otters' history, the research program, and yes, the infamous Karen incident. People loved it. Kids showed up in homemade Otter Ops t-shirts. A local artist painted a mural of an otter wearing a tactical vest, standing atop a floating hammock like a war hero. Even Dale came back for a visit. He stood at the water's edge, watched the otters in action, and said, "They're sharper than I remember. Karen must have really pushed M." We shared a laugh, toasted with root beer, and agreed. The project was a success, not just because of the otters, but because people had learned a lesson about boundaries, about respect, about the fine line between hammocking and hubris. And me, I finally got the solitude I'd wanted in the first place. The lake was peaceful again. The island was secure, and every time I saw a kayak pass at a respectful distance, I gave a little wave, and so did the otters. Well, the ones that weren't busy repurposing another flip-flop into a training dummy. As for Karen, last I heard, she was trying to start a new retreat center in the desert somewhere. Something about sand-based spiritual grounding. Hopefully, the jackrabbits out there are less forgiving than the otters were. But I doubt it. Because if you try to claim what isn't yours, if you string up hammocks where you don't belong, if you disrespect the land, the creatures, and the people who protect them, well, you just might get debriefed by SEAL Team Squeak. And let me tell you, they never forget a target.